Hello folks, welcome to KU Pathshala. My name is Ramon Dharmrajan. I'm a chartered accountant and I'm here to ask you a few questions. Ready? Okay, so if you're ready, you can engage with me. Question number 1. What do you think happens to the profit of an organization when the sales or the revenue increases? Get it? What happens to the profit when the sales increases? Question 1. Question number 2. What happens to the profit of an organization when the cost increases? Question number 2. Question number 3. What happens to the cost of an organization when the sales increases? Question number 3. What happens to the cost of an organization when the sales increases? Before I go into the answer, I want to discuss how such a problem is to be worked out. How do you go thinking about the solution to that problem? Okay, so if you want, you can just pause the video over here right now. Just think about these 3 questions. Once again, just wiggle it in your head and work it out. And I will tell you how such a question can be worked about. Now, there are 2 ways to solve such a question. You can write an equation in your mind. Sales minus cost gives you profit. Now, if you are a commerce student, you could draw a ledger, a trading account. On the credit side, you can put buy sales. On the debit side, you can put to cost, and you can arrive at gross profit. And now in that equation, you can just fill out figures and find out when the sales goes up, obviously the profit goes up. Or when the cost goes up, it's a negative figure. When the cost goes up, it will reduce the profit. Fair and simple. But this equation will never tell you the relationship between sales and cost. And sales is 1,000. 1,000 has gone up to 1,500. What happens to the cost? Now, this is probably how you were taught in school or in college, not just accounts, but any subject whatsoever. Hopefully, it's not how you're taught, but sadly, that's how a lot of students are taught. There's an equation. Sales minus cost is profit. And you just plug in figures into this equation and you get answers. That's how a lot of students are sadly taught. That's how a lot of computers work. And that's how most computers work. There is a program, there is a software that's coded in. You give the input, it gives you an output. The software, the computer doesn't know the relationship between the inputs. What is the relationship between the cost and sales? And no matter how much you boggle your head, you will not get this answer as long as you're dependent on this equation. And that's how a lot of students do. Sin square theta plus cos square theta is equal to 1. You don't know why. Because sec square theta plus sec square theta is equal to 1. You don't know why. So as long as you're dependent on these formulas and equations, you won't get the answer. But instead, just close your eyes for a second and walk into the nearest supermarket that you know. Just go to the nearest supermarket and you will see that there's a cashier over there and he is billing the products, and you will see that products are being sold. And now you can just ask yourself, okay, what happens when the sales increases? Sales increases means more products are being sold. Now, where do the products come from? The products are being purchased. It's a supermarket. So when you sell more products, you buy more products. Or you can go into a restaurant. Go into a restaurant and think of the crowd in the restaurant increasing. Usually where 4-5 tables are occupied, now the entire restaurant is occupied. The restaurant is selling more products, selling more food. Where does the food come from? Definitely the restaurant will have to buy, they'll have to purchase more raw materials. The supermarket will have to purchase more products if it wants to sell more products. So definitely you realize that as the sales increases, the cost also should increase. Are you sure? Are you sure? Not necessarily. What if I increase the price of my products? So earlier in your supermarkets, you used to sell 100 products. And even now, you're selling the same 100 products, but with an increased markup. think of a restaurant. They are catering to the same customers, same number of customers, selling the same food items, but just that they have increased the markup. The price of biryani, which was earlier 120 rupees, has now gone up to 150 rupees. Yes, your sales will increase with absolutely no change in the cost. So you have an entirely different answer now. What happens to the sales? What happens to the cost when the sales goes up? You could increase your sales without affecting cost. Now let's think of something else. Let's think of maybe a coaching center for chartered accountancy students. Now when the coaching center had 50 students, suppose the number of students increased to 100, the 50 students has increased to 100 students. The coaching center still hires the same faculty, yours faithfully, still has probably the same classroom, the same air conditioner, the same lighting, you have the same cost, but the number of students has gone up, their revenue has gone up, their cost still remains the same. Now these are just some of the situations that I have simulated for this particular problem. How do you tackle this particular problem? I have simulated a few situations, I have taken a few examples, and any example is acceptable. Any situation is acceptable. You could come up with situations where the cost actually reduces when the sales goes up. That is your creativity and your vision. Now, as I explained the story, what did you think? Did you think, array, yeah, what nonsense is, let me change the channel? Well, you probably thought that if you had something interesting going on at Netflix in the next tab or something, that's a completely acceptable understanding. But if you were sitting and watching this video with a certain amount of focus, what did you think? Did you think, hey, not bad, sounds like an interesting solution, sounds like an interesting problem, maybe I can work it out, maybe I have my own opinions. Maybe you can post in the comment section saying, Mr. Raman, no, there is an alternate possibility. You can post that in the comment section, or you can personally ring me up, or you can personally WhatsApp me and give me your suggestions. You can give me your ideas. Do you have more ideas in this situation? So this is something I do when I begin my sessions. So I teach costing and financial management at the intermediate level, and I teach strategic financial management at the CA final level. And before my class, this is something I ask my students, and I tell them two things. One is that students have to respond. Students have to engage with the faculties, engage with the professor, ask questions, give them counter opinions. When the faculty tells you that when the sales goes up, the cost has to go up, the student must respond, no sir, that's not necessary. There are certain situations where the sales goes up, but the cost does not change. What about those situations? First thing is that the student has to engage with the faculty. And the second thing is the student has to think practically, think creatively, rather than mugging up a formula that's given in your textbook. And if the formula is mugged up, then CA is going to be a very difficult journey. So this is something I use as an aptitude test, an aptitude exam. And what matters is that whether you solve the problem or not, that's entirely irrelevant. But was the problem interesting? And are you up for it? Is this how you thought? When I asked you sales and cost, did you get turned off? Again, sales here, what will I do with the sales? Did you get turned off? Or were you like, hey, that's interesting. What happens to the cost? What happens to the sale? Were you excited? Did it pique your interest? And that's a simple test I like to use for all my students, and I hope it will come in handy for you also. This is the aptitude that a CA student requires. This is what you require when you go into class, and this talent amplified 100 times is what comes out of a chartered accountant. I remember my principal that everything he looks at, he thinks of the numbers, he thinks of what are the possibilities. There was one day we went to a restaurant and he was opening the bowl of chutney. There was the red chutney and the white chutney, and the white chutney was full, the red chutney was empty, and he was like, oh, red chutney is in demand, it seems, white chutney. So that kind of, observational talent, that is the aptitude that is called for. I see a lot of students who come into CA, and when I ask them, why do you choose CA? They say that I can't handle maths. Maths I don't like, so I couldn't do engineering, therefore I walked into CA. Now whether you like maths or not is a different question. We don't have, differential calculus and integration and trigonometry walking into CA, but that innate problem solving ability is very much required, be it tax, be it finance, be it accountancy, be it your classroom or be it your workspace. You need a problem solving ability at an advanced level. For that, ability that can be developed. 2, the likeness for the problem. Do you enjoy such problems? That is the test for you. Think about it, and I will sign out.